Welcome to the Retrospect podcast, a show where three guys come together from different walks of life and discuss a topic from their generation's perspective. My name is Ian, and as always, I'm joined by X-Man.
Hey, everybody.
And Stoney.
Hello.
Stoney, you're looking a lot better, man.
Feeling a little bit better.
Yeah.
Had a kind of somewhat of a breakthrough this morning with my eyesight.
Yeah?
So I woke up this morning and saw one toilet.
Nice. That's awesome.
So that was pretty good. It started to tire by mid-morning using it, so I put the patch back on it.
Right.
And but it got a little bit better today.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear you're doing better, man.
Yeah, going into the neurologist Monday.
Yeah.
I'm kind of glad to walk in with some good news, you
Right.
know, along with a million questions,
Of course.
but some good news too. So,
Yeah.
You definitely look like you feel better.
Yeah. If
That's
y'all see my eye drifting off, just kind of wave at me.
Right. Wave on your good side.
Yeah.
Oh, man. So, okay. So I think we kind of touched on this topic a little bit last episode. But what are...
I think we've kind of touched on it a couple of times.
Oh, we have.
And,
Yeah.
and I've
I
begged
think,
y'all if we could just do an episode
right.
for this.
I think we really laid some of the groundwork.
Right.
Last episode.
And I think it's a
before this.
question and maybe some solutions and some thoughts that our listeners will enjoy and maybe have something to say about too.
Right. So what do we got for today? Drum roll.
What is your definition of a good leader?
That's a good question.
So let's define leader.
Right.
How about just leader?
Yeah. There you go. So I just want to pull up something for a second.
I think last week I talked a lot about like what a good leader is not, because I had
Yes.
that very specific scenario with the
Sure.
guy I worked with that was not a good leader.
Right.
So what? Let's go there. What are some bad leadership qualities?
You know, I think anytime that your leadership leads to people, being miserable,
Yeah.
that's a really great indicator that you are not an effective leader.
Okay.
when the people around you are happy.
Well, one of the things, that I wanted to do, I met Hottie Doctor, and she encourages me and pushes me to do a lot of things that I wanted to do. And I kind of wanted to go back to school and take some classes on leadership. We know where I work.
Right.
The listeners don't, but y'all know where I work.
Right.
And so I had to write a couple of papers. I was just going to go to one of the local colleges and take some online stuff. And she pushed me pretty hard, and I worked very hard at it, and I got accepted to some online classes in, Ivy League school.
Right.
And one of the papers that I had to write, they says, give us 2 words that define a leader.
Okay.
And I said safety and unit. And
I would never pick those
Oh,
words.
yeah. I was
and
gonna say,
you
not-
know
not
what?
to-
It's very funny, but
Right.
that was the very thing that the instructor sent me back and said, nobody's ever used that. We keep track of all of this, and
Right.
nobody has ever used either of those words.
Wow.
And I says, well, obviously y'all never work for such and such and such a place
Right,
where I
right.
work, where safety and unit is very, very important.
Yeah.
And so they says, well, obviously when you choose those 2 words and you hit submit, it says, great, now write a, 10,000 word essay
Right.
on why you chose those words. And so, the instructor went in to tell me that I proved my point, welcome to such and such school online.
Nice.
Because I had to write 4 papers to even get admitted to it.
Yeah.
And
Really prove your worth at that
to
point.
prove my point.
Yeah.
And I was able to prove my argument. And so what do you think about those 2 words? Safety. In any company, don't you want to feel safe?
Oh yeah, of course. Especially from like a superior of some kind.
Mm-hmm.
But I was gonna say it's an unconventional, I guess, association of like what you would imagine, like, because again, when you think leader, obviously everyone thinks of like this big, confident and sometimes probably arrogant or whatever kind of personality.
X-Man proved last week that he felt unsafe.
Right.
And the people in his company that he was working with felt unsafe with this poor leader or manager
Right.
of that company. So safety does become kind of an interesting quality.
Yeah.
So then when you promote the word unit, not everybody in the company has exact same skills, the same weaknesses, the same strengths. But when you pull those things together and you help people, with their weaknesses, with other people's strengths, and you create a unit,
team out of it,
a team or a unit, that would be a good leader, right?
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, definitely. And when I'm thinking about what you're saying, I understand the aspect of safety in this way. For me, is the leader somebody that I'm willing to take a calculated risk with?
Yeah, exactly.
Am I willing to try something that maybe not be proven or that may be way out of my comfort zone? Right. Am I willing to go there with this person because we have some trust?
Right.
And so, I'm going to follow a leader into a situation if I feel like, I am safe in order to do that. And so I totally get where the safety piece comes from. It's not exactly what I would thought of as far as like what to call that. But, I think safety and trust in that respect are very interchangeable because, I've definitely found myself when I'm following a leader that I really aspire to and that I really think, and this is another thing I'll say, I'm very particular about whose leadership I put myself under.
You said that before.
I always have been. I always, and I mean, even someone mentoring me, like I kind of like vet who's pouring into me too. And I've always,
okay, let's look at that. So mentoring somebody, you would consider them a leader. So now we've kind of gotten away from an authoritative leader. So how do we define that? You have two things. You have formal authority, you have informal authority, and then you have qualities of leadership.
Yeah.
Do they all have to be there? What would y'all say would be formal authority? What would be formal authority?
Oh, probably some rank or some
you have a position,
title or something.
Rank or title. So because you have been placed in this position, does that mean you're a good leader?
No. Oh, no, definitely not.
Okay. So then if you are a good leader, but you don't have this authority, then maybe you have something what's called informal authority.
Right.
Okay. So what would maybe be a good example of someone with informal authority that would be considered a good leader?
My daughter and my family.
Explain that.
She's 9, but she has leadership qualities in her, and she has the ability to get others to do things. As a matter of fact, she has her whole table in her class.
Right.
And the teacher told me when I went to go there for their parent-teacher outing thing that she'll sit there and she basically leads the whole table and doing their lesson and stuff. And she goes, it's insane. And I was like, she wants to be a teacher.
Right.
So she's just emulating you. She's doing the thing.
Can I just say, like father, like daughter, if there is one person that I always hype X-Man up a lot of times when I'm talking about people, I was like, X-Man just has a quality of like, he always encourages the people around him that he works with or that he's just around. And he's an ideas man. He just is the guy who he brings everyone together and is like, he'll throw out this really crazy big idea and gets everyone on board with it, and then it's like, and then before you know it, I'm like, how did I get here? But this is awesome though. And it's like,
thank you, thank you. That's cool. But
that's a great example. I know your daughter, and I agree.
Yeah,
she brings people together. She makes people feel safe. With an idea, or even just. Let's dance together.
Yes.
Right.
I know that sounds corny, but I've seen grown men, tough, badass Marines just dancing with this cute little blonde because she creates a safe place. She knows they're safe.
That's interesting.
Yeah. But let's go one step further. Who would be another example of that?
Well, I think there's people on the world stage. I mean,
so remember, informal authority means you really don't have a lot of title, but maybe your influence with your leadership skills reached across the globe. How about we say Dr. Martin Luther King?
Oh, yeah, great.
Dr. Martin Luther King was the pastor of less than a 300-member church.
Yeah, he wasn't banking.
He
wasn't
doing like he was. But his influence and his leadership skills brought the world somewhat together to follow his dream.
Right. Yeah, you're right, and it's a prime example of that. Of
who else?
One of the greatest leaders of all time, actually. I mean,
who else might fall into that category then?
I think gosh, I mean, there are many. I don't think they're just religious ones.
Right.
I think there are very non-religious ones. But I will say I always love it when someone has nothing, who's super poor or whatever. So I'm going to say Jesus.
Okay.
I'm also, or
Right.
Mother Teresa, or somebody like that.
How about Mahatma Gandhi?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Gandhi.
Okay, he had absolutely nothing, but he brought peace.
Yes.
Yeah.
He taught us about peace.
I really admire a leader like that. Honestly, that's, to me, that is just really something. You're talking about people, they didn't even collect a check.
Yeah.
Nothing. They didn't get paid.
Right. They did. So,
all.
Mahatma Gandhi and Jesus, they said, you know what? Throw away your riches
Yeah.
and come follow this path here. You may not
Yeah.
make a lot of money,
Right.
but let's
You're
go
gonna
do
find
this
joy.
thing. And people follow them.
That's what I mean about taking risk. Those are people like Martin
Yeah.
Luther King. You want to take a risk with them. You want to kind of go, you know what? I am going to stand up, and I'm not going to sit down and just allow injustice or whatever. I'm actually going to get up and do something. So they're kind of, I think another thing that helps define a leader is like someone who can motivate you to do something, to take actions,
Right.
and to use your talents and your gifts to resolve problems and stuff.
But then don't they also, on the other hand, yes, this person has these gifts, but this person has these gifts and this weakness over here. How do we bring that together and create a safe place for ideas, thought processes, and bring people together to want to follow this process, to follow this lead, to follow this person or this idea? How do we get those people to do that?
Yeah, when I came, I'm not from where we're at now. And so I came in as a transplant. And one of the things that was really important to me before I could feel good about coming here was knowing that whatever I was going to do here was going to be collaborative.
Okay.
And so one of the things that I specifically requested of the people who invited me here is I said, I want to work in a team. That's the most important thing to me. Like, I'm not the person that's going to work alone, who's going to sit there and, I need to work in a team, and I have to be collaborative, because I like when people come together to do something together. So, I've never been the person who needs, the gold star by my name or anything like that. What I need to feel is like, hey, we did something worthwhile, and it took us all, and now we can all be really excited about what we're doing.
So again, we're falling down to the word unit.
Yeah.
So what's another example of that? The Marines take all of these kids from across America that have vast size differences, mentality differences,
Right.
so many things.
Just cultural stuff.
They take the nerds, they take the jocks, they take everybody. They even take the people that seem to want to be that individual and break them down and bring them back up as a unit. And it seems like the individual type people fall off to the wayside.
Yeah.
And then the unit comes back up. So how are we going to create that unit? What's an idea? How can you create that safe space?
I think some level of I don't know about the whole creating a safe space for it. I think a lot of that's like trust and stuff, like you were saying before, but like it is having a certain when you're seeing those people that stand out as like, I want to be like the ones, like the guys who you think would probably be like the leader initially. There's like a level of, like I said before, like an arrogance of sorts that kind of feels uncomfortable, I think. And I think that there's certain people that I would feel like are better leaders in that respect, or something that has a little humility of like, I'm not perfect and I'm flawed, but let's go ahead and go through this together kind of thing.
Okay, well, let me ask you a question based on that. So we have a pretty good process here for our podcast, right? We walk in, one of us may have an idea, and we present it.
Right.
How would y'all two feel if I walked in with a chart and I said, this is the idea, this is how we're going to discuss it, this is what we're going to do, I want you to say this, I want you to approach this subject, and I want you to go this way with it?
I'd say I'm out.
Right.
Bye,
Okay.
I'm done.
So then does a leader talk first or listen first?
Yeah, definitely.
So
listens.
again, we come back to creating a safe space.
Right.
We have an amazing space where we look at each other and we say, hey, I kind of got this idea. It sounds kind of cornball. And then we turn it into something amazing.
Right.
Because we have respect,
Yeah.
trust. Some things, Ian, you take a leadership role in your ideas, X-Man too. Hopefully sometimes I can fill in, and we come up with these awesome ideas, and we turn it into an hour and 10 minutes worth of hopefully something people want to listen to, a great conversation.
Right.
I think the other thing is just recognizing that we all bring something different to the table.
Right.
And you're talking about, you and I are both leaders, but we're leaders in very different ways. Yeah. And so, I think, one of the things that I appreciate about you and your leadership and as somebody who is responsible for kind of looking at the talents of the overall group of people that I'm with, and being able to deploy all of that talent into different projects and different things to do that we do. I've always appreciated your humility and your ability to you're not a in your face kind of people person. Mm-hmm. But you are a people person, you are. And the way that you engage people is a way that I personally like to be engaged. Mm-hmm. And it's, and so I always think of you when it comes to needing that particular gift, because of the way you do that. Would it be the way I do it? Absolutely not. I'm more of a mouthpiece in your face, kind of, stirring stuff up and getting people,
Right, exactly.
But so we're leaders in a very different way. But in my mind, and in you, Stoney, you're, oh my God, you're the guy that if I needed somebody to go on a real crusade and mission, I'm going to put you, like, that's exactly what I would do. I'd be like, this is who's going to take us there, because that's somebody who can get it done. And so, I think that even though we're all very different types of people, we're all different, we're all leaders in just our way. But I do think that, like you were saying, coming in with a chart and saying, here, stand here, say this, say it like this. I've had that boss, and I never liked it because it didn't feel authentically me, number one. I felt like I was being like pigeonholed into an idea of that somebody else had of how it should be done. And I'm like, if that's how you want it done, go find that person.
Right.
That's not me. Like, clearly this is not.
Okay.
And
so there was a third word that I would have liked to have used. So let me throw that out to y'all, and let's see where we're going to hit that one. Empathetic.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Okay. Should a leader be like that?
Yeah.
Remember, we're talking about leader, not necessarily authority. What's qualities of a good leader? Now, you can have that leadership with authority. So let's say you're the executive of something. Right. Should you have empathy?
So I'm going to say yes when the situation calls for it.
Right.
Because there are times when you have to be a leader, and that's just not the thing that's needed. That's that may not be the thing.
But could it be the thing you start with to find out if it's not needed? If somebody's having a bad day and they make a bad decision and we haven't really spoken to them in a couple of weeks, is it right to come in and hammer that person and beat the crap out of them? Or do you go into their office, not your office, their office, and you sit down with them and you say, hey, look, we kind of didn't make a good decision on that. Is there something going on? Do you need help? Is there something happening here at work that we need to know about? Is there something in your home life that we need to know about? How can we reach you to where this doesn't happen again? Yeah. And then based on that answer, hammer time.
Yeah.
But why do leaders want to start off hammer?
Yeah. So I don't think most leaders do. I think there are some. I'll say this, and now we're a generational podcast, and so we talk about this.
Right.
I'm gonna say I feel like one of the millennials' greatest contributions to the world is taking to task authority. Yeah. Because you all have done a really good job of saying, you know what, just because you have authority, does not mean that you get to abuse it or abuse me
right
in it. And so I really appreciated in your generation, in the way that you've called that out and made it not okay. In my generation, some of that was kind of a political play,
Right.
or an internal play, or ladder climbing, or, that kind of thing. Or, people felt like they would even try to joke about it and say, I sleep my way to the top and stuff like that,
Right.
And so it still made it kind of okay. In your generation,
And I'm sorry,
even worse.
These guys, these millennials, they ride this fine line between I'm lazy and you shouldn't treat me that way, or you can't do this to me. And I think there's a very fine line with, holding their authority, but also making excuses for their laziness.
Okay, so I'm not talking entitlement.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about the actual calling out of true abuse in authority.
Okay.
And so I just feel like you've done a good job of that. You've made it not okay for someone to stand on someone else's neck for 8
Right.
seconds, 8 minutes. So those kinds of things, I'm okay that gets called to the carpet, and I think that that's necessary. And I'm not saying every situation is that situation. I do think that we kind of can take that in up a crazy direction, but I'm okay that it does that. But I will say that generationally, I feel like if I had to say, God, I'm sorry for the way we led, it would be any time that my generation said, I'm going to sleep my way to the top, or, the expectation is you do this for this bad thing or whatever. And you see that uncovered in things like the Me Too movement, like the, all of the scandals and stuff, especially with regards to women. There's just been so much stuff that has happened under that bridge. So I really think that a true leader is also brave enough to stand up in the face of stuff like that, and go,
now that
absolutely
I agree with.
not.
I agree with.
Mm-hmm. So I think you have to put some action to your convictions as a leader sometimes.
Okay.
Yeah. I agree with that. The only thing I was going to say was like if we're going back to kind of what would you look for in a leader as far as like for myself is like you were saying empathy was that third word, and for me I feel like respect is always a thing that I have that I try my hardest is like
you've talked about that with your couple of your past positions.
Is to again at this point but I think when I say that I think it also comes from a place of empathy in some regard. Is like you don't know where someone's been, you don't know how long they've been at a certain place or like that kind of stuff. So sometimes like a lot of places that I've gone into, I go into like this kind of level of some sort of what did you call it? Leadership, like formal leadership. I go into some sort of middle management, some sort of formal management position. A lot of times with people that have already been here and knowing full well that like I'm the new guy kind of. And again, so it's like I've tried to like ride this line between like we've got to get a job done, we've got something to do, but at the same time like I also understand that like you have been here, you understand how this team works. Like tell me how like to do better at my jobs. That way I'm not just sitting here, at a desk and just like, oh yeah, just
I think a lot of times, and maybe y'all can chime in on this, but I think a lot of times people get promoted and they don't know about that new position.
Oh man.
And they fall back into a micromanagement position with the people below them because they know that job so well because that's why they got promoted. And then there's no training on the next level. And so they become kind of bad leaders because they're sitting there putting their finger and micromanaging the people below them.
Can I just say,
please,
you are literally describing to a T what happened at my previous job. I always talk about the coffee shop job, and that was exactly what happened. The manager that came in that was directly above me. Again, I was what we call a supervisor. So I would supervise the staff and make sure the store's closed, money's counted. Like it was a pretty important job, but I made sure the store ran. And of course, everything past me was kind of just like logistics stuff, all like kind of, numbers and whatnot. But so this lady came in and she was super nice at first. And she worked at a very big makeup chain in the United States. And so she went from that into this coffee chain, having no previous knowledge of anything. And her first few months, she was nervous and was like, because again, she was coming into a team that like was already pretty like well rooted in their ways, and so like I was trying to be this sort of bridge between the two of like, I understand how scary this is. I understand how hard this is. I have been here for a long time. I can help you out as much as I can.
Or you'll allow me to.
And so for the few months she did, and that was the thing is like she was very accepting of like my help. And
what's that expression? Let me help you.
Right.
Help me help you. Help me help you.
Yeah. And again, because I don't want her to look bad. And again, it was during like the holiday season, which for the coffee chain I worked for was usually crazy always.
So it sounds like to me she had the formal authority, but you had the leadership skills, and you're trying to help her, and she wasn't receiving.
Yeah, and then no, she was at first. Then after the holidays had passed and the dust had settled and everything was back to like the nitty gritty, there was a lot of like her throwing her weight around.
Now I'm going to tell you.
Yeah, and then it was also like you said, in a micromanaging in a way. But for me, who was a big fan of like I don't do things by the books, but I do know the core rules pretty well because I've been here long enough, and I've taught, and I taught new hires a lot, and so that was kind of my in and out job. Was like I know this book inside and out, and the drinks and the coffee associated with it, and so whenever I would get corrected incorrectly, it would be hard for me to sit there and be like and just take it, like, because again I respect the position, but like the person was making it hard to like, you know, because then I would say like, actually no, it's this way, and then she would get mad and then reprimand me in front of the whole team, and I was like, I would a lot of times try to pull her aside and go like, here's the book, I'm sorry, but you're like, what do you want me to do? Do you want me to follow your lead, or do you want me to do like what the company says? And she's always, you know, it was a handful of times where that happened, where I was like, it's just hard to.
So basically, it became an unsafe situation for you. You didn't want to come to work.
Yes.
And when you don't want to come to work, productivity, it tanks. So, you know, what are we looking at? How can we build up the productivity? How can we, as leaders, what can we do to build that up? How can we create a safe place?
Right. So I want to answer that, but I also, before we move on from empathy too far, I want to say one more thing about it, because I think it's really important. And that is that, you know, I kind of hinted earlier that not every situation involves an empathetic leader. And I want to kind of clarify that, because I do think that empathy is a terrific leadership quality.
Right.
But I will tell you that, you know, being in upper management for many years, there have been instances, a handful of times, where empathy was absolutely not necessary. In fact, it would have been probably harmful to bring that to the table, and especially in situations where I've had to terminate someone for criminal reasons. And so there have been a handful of situations, and that's where you kind of have to flip that switch as a leader and kind of go, this isn't an emotional thing, and this isn't a personal thing. But it's personal on the level of, I'm going to protect my company and my people. But you know, but
let me ask you a question. Okay, you say that, and you want to remove the empathy from it. But you have a person who is committing a criminal act, or a person who is being a cancer to the company. You're using empathy for the other employees to go ahead and take care of this problem.
You're right. But with that person, that's not my rule.
So if I'm going to create a family, if I'm going to create a family atmosphere, can I still do that and still be professional and have to discipline people? I can love you like a brother or sister and still have to discipline you, including termination, including jail time, and still love you and still want the best for you. But this is the unit. You can either be part of it or not. And by you doing that criminal act, you've chosen not to be part of it.
Yeah. And yes. And so, but I will say that there have been a handful of times where empathy was not.
Not
in
directly.
in my opinion, empathy would not be my.
But you were looking at it for your other people.
Definitely empathetic towards my other people,
right.
But more like
the direct.
I'm gonna kick your ass. more like a you don't hurt my family. Like you're out.
That's
right.
You know, so again, you're still using those skills,
absolutely,
and you're looking out for the unit, and you're creating a safe place, and removing the unsafe.
Yes, right.
So I mean. Kind of.
I mean, in one direction. It's just not empathy in every direction.
No, I completely agree. But you can still create a safe place for your family and your unit.
Yeah.
You know,
I always appreciated. I always really loved when I worked in jobs that called for this, was like getting into the thick of it with you, kind of thing. I think I've touched on this before, but like I always had like a certain respect for someone that's not afraid to like get their hands dirty with me, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Where it's like they may be above me, they get paid more than me, but at the same time they're not afraid to like come down to my level and go like, let's go ahead and get through this. Like, like, you know, and then that was always something that really encouraged me as like an employee or like a middle tier leadership of some level, was like having someone there that's got your back. And then I think it has that safety you keep talking about. That
I want to use two examples from my work. I had a new lieutenant come in.
Right.
And he was absolutely one of the very best at what he did in his field,
right,
in this position. And you heard him talk about, I did this, I did this, I did that,
right,
I did this, I did that.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, his tone changed. And it became team and unit.
Right.
And he started realizing something along the way. Now he's a captain because his whole presence changed.
Yeah.
He became a different person. He found out true leadership skills.
Yeah.
And then when you heard him talk, it was like, my team, my people, my team, my people. Everything he said changed. And then some other things changed in him too. And I'm going to throw a statement at both of y'all, and I want to just fire away at it.
Here we go.
Yeah, that's right.
Buckle up.
So a true leader takes the blame and gives the credit elsewhere.
Yeah, I would agree with that to a certain degree.
If the buck stops here,
yeah.
But, you know, it's like the CEO, my customers come first. Bitch, you ain't talked to a customer in 15 years. So the people below you may believe the customer comes first.
Right.
But you ain't talked to a customer, you know, since you've been executive vice president, and you only talked to that one customer because the email accidentally got through to you.
Yeah.
So
I'm going to say an effective leader. Yes. An effective leader is going to,
but that's what this show is. What's an effective leader? What's a good leader?
I mean, effective leader will do that. And you know, it's kind of like one of those, you know, I think I may have said this on a really early podcast of ours, is, you know, as kind of a something that I try to like stay very true to is if I'm going to tear your butt up, I'm going to do that one-on-one in a conversation.
Right.
But if I'm going to praise you, I'm going to do it in writing so that you can read it over and over and over
or in
and over.
front of other people.
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
And so I really think that that's kind of along those same lines. But I'll tell you what absolutely, you know, and just my own personal like work ethic, what I cannot stand is a leader who undermines the work of the team.
Oh man, yeah.
Because I cannot stand going somewhere and collecting a check to do something specific that somebody's paying me for,
right?
Only to have the people that that are also paid to do that thing to undermine the work that we're doing. Like, I just can't do that. I can't feel good about going and getting paid to do something that I know is being undermined by our own people.
Yeah.
I won't do that.
Well,
that's a job I'll check out.
If we're trying to create a safe place to discuss ideas and thoughts, what good does it do somebody to keep shooting it down?
Oh, I know.
You know, or take the credit for it.
And yet I've walked into team after team after team where this is a common practice. Like you were talking about, your leader is actually undermining the work of the team because it's not the policy of the company.
Right.
That's not a leader that knows what the policy of the company is.
Right.
And as a leader, she ought to be able to, you know what I would respect more?
What?
You know what, Ian? You're right. I was wrong. I'm sorry.
Yeah, exactly.
And now in the future, I'm going to know to do that. And because you know that, and because you know that, and I don't, I would love to reward you in this small way.
Especially
because you taught me something.
How about this one? thank you for keeping me safe. Thank
Yeah.
you for
Yeah.
keeping me out of
Right,
trouble.
for
Just
saving
a
my butt.
simple thank you
Because
sometimes means a lot.
Exactly, but like I said, and I think the points you're making is exactly right. But the like the cherry on top of all of it was the fact that she would walk around preaching like, we got to do it by the standard. We got to do it by the standard. We have to do it by the book. Like, we got to do it this way.
And you're like, you don't know
And
the
Do as I
standard.
say, not as I do. Do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah, but that's the thing is that's why I had stopped her a handful of times, because I was like, you keep walking around preaching this philosophy of like, we have to do it by the book, but what book are you reading? 'Cause
Right.
it's not the one I have.
Not the same book
Yeah.
you got.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
all right, let's go to the second one. That was great. I like that.
Right.
That was good. So let's go to the second one. So this lieutenant gets promoted and goes to captain.
Right.
And I'm like, oh man, who are we going to get? So the next lieutenant comes in, and nope, brilliant person.
Really?
Love this guy.
Okay.
Love him to death. He needed to go somewhere and catch his breath, and I had an opportunity to sit down with him. And everybody wants to be promoted. I would like a promotion at my job.
Right.
I would like a promotion at my second job.
Yeah.
I would like something, right? We
Right.
all want that,
of course.
don't you? Would
Always.
you? Yeah. Okay.
Move up.
So, and I said, but why are you looking for the promotion? Why is always an important word, right? Why are you doing something? Why are you
Right.
building a team? Why are you doing this?
Mm-hmm.
And I says, what if you find that your promotion is just part of your journey?
Yeah.
What if it has nothing to do with you?
Uh-huh.
What if somewhere along the way you have to help somebody else that you're not
Right.
even thinking about?
Right.
So that changed him. And now he's left to go on to a bigger and better position, and he's busy. He's happy.
Yeah.
And,
That's
he
awesome.
thanked me for kind of helping along that path there.
Yeah.
So what is the journey of leadership?
Mm.
I'll tell you, that's a big one. I've gone through a really long process in my work.
Yeah.
A long process.
You've done a
That's
lot of school too.
Required a bunch of school. It required a lot of sacrifice. It required more sacrifice of my family than I can
Right.
even imagine. But, honestly, and a lot of hoop jumping. I mean, one
Yeah.
hoop after another. And none of it is like, oh, cool, I want to jump through that
Yeah, right.
hoop. It was more like, oh, God.
Oh man, here we go.
I got to do that next.
Oh, wait, they're setting the next hoop on fire too? Wait, hold on.
Yeah,
So
right.
all the while, I'm also having to like eke out a living, and
Right.
actually do the job, right? And so, having gone through something like that, what I have decided is that you're right. It is a journey, and you know what we have to remember, especially when it calls for that kind of stamina and endurance over a long period of time, you really have to just go it a day at a time and realize I don't need to like try to drive myself crazy and control all the outcomes here.
Right.
What I need to do is just put one foot in front of the other until the milestones on the journey are reached.
Right.
And remember to enjoy it along the way, because you only like get it once.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I think that your leadership journey has to have those things in mind if you're going to really go somewhere.
Right.
Because if you don't, you're just going to flail about and do a bunch of random stuff, and it's not going to have any direction. And you're going to look back on it and go, I spent a lot of my time regretting or not even caring about what I was doing.
Yeah.
But if you're intentional and you can kind of go, no, I'm going to be present in this day, and I'm going to do this thing, and I am going to jump through this hoop, and I'm going to give myself a pat on the back after I'm done and kind of go, oh, cool, I was able to get that part of it done. And now, but I feel like you pay more attention to the people along the way. And really, I wish I could say, oh, I'm a great leader. That's not it. I am good at emulating other leaders who were great to me.
Yeah, right.
And I think that's the thing, is that we're kind of a collection. And that's why I said I'm really, really particular about whose leadership I put myself under.
Yeah.
And that's why. It's because
what is the old phrase that like a good artist borrows but a great artist steals? Or whatever?
right. Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
Right. Right.
Well,
Exactly.
let me ask this question.
Yeah.
So, is good leadership a perishable skill?
Perishable? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You mean like, can
y'all
you
are
stop?
both artists.
Yeah,
if
yeah,
you
yeah.
stop painting, or if you stopped playing, what
Right.
is it, bass that you play?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure. You
Let's
lose
say
it.
you did it for 2 or 3 years, stopped.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could you just pick up and start doing it? So you said it's a daily journey for your leadership. So do you need to practice this, your empathy?
Sure.
How about active listening?
Right.
I
believe a lot of it can't I believe you can get rusty at it. I wouldn't probably say like losing the quality, because I'm pretty sure like if you have, at least I'm just speaking for myself, is like I have I've been taught things by some great people. I'm like, you guys included, and so I may not be able to practice that, I guess, every day. But I do feel like, I mean, you're right. I think there's skills you to probably keep up on. You know, it's probably like riding a bike. I don't think you ever can really like lose some of that. I don't think. But maybe.
But why can't you do it every day? Active listening is something that happens. Can I use an example that happened between me and you and a friend?
Absolutely.
You know, I have one bad eye.
Right.
I can't drive.
Right.
Everything everybody was saying to me, I was absorbing in. It was like I needed it.
Yeah.
And I was actively listening to you.
Yeah.
And I was actively listening to another friend.
If I knew that was going to be the result, I would have poked his eyes out like two years ago.
So
oh, man.
I came up with a solution for something. And had I not been active listening or caring about y'all or using empathy for your situation, for his situation, I would have missed that opportunity.
Yeah, no, you took a steam out of a stressful situation for everybody.
And I'm not trying to pat myself on the back.
No.
I'm
I
giving
understand
you
that.
a specific example of active listening and why it's so important on a day-to-day basis.
Right.
Well, and a lot of times, and I've been an apologetic about being a person of faith and that kind of thing. I really feel like if you're out there and you're listening and you are a person of faith, to me that's kind of a spiritual discussion too. Yeah. That can be an opportunity for you to hear from somebody other than yourself and other people too. It can be an opportunity for you to kind of hear that voice within you that says, hey, here's something that's going to add purpose to your life if you'll just do this, And so I think from a spiritual standpoint that can also be very meaningful for those who follow a faith.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nothing on that one?
Oh, no, I agree.
You look like your little brain was turning.
No, I'm really just soaking in all of what you guys are saying. I think these are all. I agree with what he's saying wholeheartedly. There's like
Let me ask you all this: has there ever been? Have you ever had like an intuition about a leader? Like maybe you didn't know them for a long time or whatever, but you either just instantly loved them or you instantly didn't.
Are you talking about a leader or a person of authority?
Either one.
Interesting.
I just want to ask you that. Like, how does your gut play into this? Because because I always say, listen to your gut. Especially, and I'm not saying do that without knowledge and without training and all these other things. But how does your gut play into
absolutely that
this?
Same example that I gave from the lieutenant that's now a captain.
Yeah.
Okay. There are people who didn't know this person who foamed at the mouth when they talked about this person, and they brought that to my attention. I said, "Excuse me, let me tell you how he's treated me." Even in the few times in the very beginning, how professional and how he was full of empathy, and this leader was, and I'm like, "That's the guy. That's the guy." I can follow that guy. I can do this. And then he wound up being my lieutenant a couple of months later. I'm like, yes, I can do this.
Yeah.
The first job I ever worked was at a wholesale store, and it was like right out of high school. And I was like, I didn't want to, my mom was like, either you're going to go to school or you're going to make money. Like those are the two things. You're not going to be, bumming around at the house. Right. And I was like, you got it. So I got out of high school, didn't want to go to college because I didn't want to go for it. So I was like, work. So I started working. And then I had two different managers at the store, and it was the same, just like you're saying. I had a great feeling about one and then an awful feeling about another one. And the great feeling about the one guy, he was just such a genuine guy that whenever all the other managers would kind of talk, it kind of felt hollow. And they're like, I care about you. And it's like, no, you don't. You just are saying that because you have to. But he was the one, like whenever he would talk to you, it was like he wasn't talking around you. It was like he was talking to you. And it was like, and there was a couple times where like, we had a hurricane or something come through, and he like texted me, and he was the only one to like really do that. And he was like, I just want to make sure you're okay. Like, I'll make sure you're safe. And he wasn't even like my direct manager. So I was like, it wasn't even like I was like part of his team technically, but it was just like that's a guy who like is genuine and who actually cares. And I was like, man, it was a great feeling about him. But on the opposite end of that, just this little story I'll say, there was one time where like I had messed up the cash register. I think like I counted, it was like a quick day, and it was the one and only time like I messed up, and I messed up bad. And then like I think I forgot to give this lady a 20 out of her change. So it was like she got most of her change, but not all of it.
Mm-hmm.
And this was like he had pulled me into the office, and he just started like, he got so mad because he had to go speak to this woman about the situation and how he was so disappointed in how I messed up. And then I remember sitting there even at like 18 or 19, and I look back on it and go like, I'm proud of myself for that moment, because I sat there and I told him, I was like if you want me to, I will take the blame. Like, it was my mistake. I messed up, and I will look at this woman in the face with all honesty and say, I messed up. And if you want me to, I will give her money. Like I will do that to help my own conscience out. And then he was like, I can't do that, or I'm not going to do that. Like, I can't believe this. And he just started grilling me. It was like, he threatened to fire me and stuff like that. Cause it was like my drawer was over, and it's anything over $5 is like bad. So like, I think I almost got written up or something. But like, I remember sitting there like being scared, but like also being fully willing to like fess up for my mistake in that moment, and he just wouldn't let me do it. And I was like, I mean, okay, but I was like,
well, I think that's a great example of, is it always bad employees or bad leaders? There's a great leadership motivational speaker, Simon Sinek. Have either one of y'all heard of him?
I've not.
Okay. He tells a story about one time he was in Las Vegas, and he went to this casino, to the coffee house.
Yeah.
And he sat down with a barista, I guess, is that what they're called? Right, and he said he sat down, and this guy was so amazing. He said he had fun, he engaged, he had one of the most brilliant times he's ever had at a coffee house. And he engaged conversation with him and started talking to him and said, well, the managers here love us. They talk to us. Managers that don't even have anything to do with me will walk up and say, hey, but how you doing? You doing great today? What can I get you? What do you need?
Right.
And he says, but I have a second job. And I go to that second job, and I don't talk to anybody. Mm-hmm. He says, I stay under the radar. He says, because the managers there are always trying to put you in a trick bag. They're always trying to point out what you're doing wrong. They're always trying to point out how, you're messing up. Yeah. And so we have the same employee. Yeah. One, and Simon, and please, Simon, if you're ever listening to this, please don't be mad that I'm using your name. But, unless you want to be a sponsor, and that would be great. Right. But he says, I tipped this guy, what the coffee was worth. He said, I had such an amazing time, and you have this one employee over here who's doing amazing, who I want to come back to and see, and then I would have never noticed him at this other place. Right. Because he's hiding under the radar. So, we've kind of touched on this. Isn't it not always bad employees, but can it be bad leaders and managers too?
Absolutely.
I have said this, again, especially talking about being a barista at the coffee shop I keep talking about. That was that I told my people that I hate to call them subordinates, because I wouldn't even, but like the people that were under me, coworkers that I would talk to, I was like, it all trickles down from the top.
Oh, it does.
And I was like,
it absolutely does. I went to an interview at a company that I was assured, it was highly touted. Somebody recommended it to me who was somebody that I had worked with before. Yeah. And she was like, oh, you've got to work for this company. It's just an amazing company. I went to the interview, and I had explained, my background and who I'd worked for, and what one of the owners who I'd worked for, and she knew that owner, and she started bad mouthing that owner, and every single thing that she said about that owner was true.
Really?
But was it appropriate?
He was not good. He was not that. But all I could set that my gut was like, warning. Right. If she's gonna sit here and talk bad, about somebody that you've worked for in the past, how is she going to talk about you? Yes. How is she going to represent other people that she doesn't necessarily agree with?
Bad leadership skills.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. So
that's really bad leadership skills. If you're going to sit here and badmouth somebody, you're not creating a safe environment.
But I think you do have to trust your gut when it comes to this a little bit, because again, you're talking about, like what I said when we opened, when you have to think about, do I want to go and take risks with this person? Yeah. that's not somebody I want to go take risk with.
Right.
You know, if you had a bad experience or you had a bad history with this person or whatever, cool. But surely you learned something from all of that. You know, surely you did. Now there are some people who, like I told you, that guy that was that I worked for that was terrible.
Richard.
Yeah.
I really, Richard. I actually used that the other day. I thought that was so funny. I learned a whole new slang.
Oh man, yeah.
But I worked for that guy, and I really meant what I said to him on my birthday when I quit.
Right.
I spent my hours explaining to my employees his behavior.
Really.
And so, you know, it was the hardest, most disgusting way to you know, to have to sit there property after property and go, yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. You're right. You shouldn't be spoken to like that. No, you're absolutely right. No, you're right. That's sexual harassment. No, I'm
right.
You know, I mean, just awful.
Right.
You know?
I have I have worked in both ends of the coin where I have management that I have to go in and sweep up the kind of crumbs, or again, obviously a lot of times, like you said before, is like taking the blame as like, you know, and praising the team in some capacity. I've had like the same sort of situation. You're like, you know, when someone's mad and they're really frustrated about something, you can just sit there and go like, nah, especially because if they're right, you're like, nah, I mean, you're right. That is disrespectful and she shouldn't have done that or whatever.
Right.
Sometimes the paycheck's just not worth it. You know what I mean? Like sometimes it's like, I'll pay you to not work here. Like,
right.
You know,
right.
That's when you know you're not in the hands of a good leadership, right?
Right. Oh man.
Wow. So
on the flip side of that, I've worked jobs where I didn't get paid hardly anything, but I absolutely loved it.
Oh yeah.
Which is how I got into what I'm doing now.
I worked for a guy one time. It was
never about the check.
He didn't pay me for like 6 weeks. And I started moaning. I said, dude, you know, look, I like working for you.
Right.
I said, but I got to get paid. He says, you should just be lucky you get paid at all. I went, what? Well, first off, I'm not getting paid at all. It's been 6 weeks, but since you bring it up, you know, and I did everything I could for him to help him out and help his business. You know, he bought a business he didn't know anything about. I had just moved back from Florida and I was just trying to help somebody.
Right.
And we built his business up, got him some contracts, got a deal with the state to where he could get paid differently, and then he quit paying me.
What?
Oh gosh, I hate that.
Now he figured it out,
right.
caught it up, but you know, he didn't think it was necessary, I guess,
to tell him no pay, no stay.
Right.
So but that was not a good leader,
right?
You know, and you know, I'm still friends with him. You know, I've tried to help him along the way. I've tried to use some of my skills to help him along the way, and it just, you know, come on, guy. You know,
right.
What you say to people, how you say things to people is so important.
Yeah. I definitely like where I'm at right now, again, kind of circling back to the top of the conversation, like there was a level of risk with it for me where it was like, I can like, I have a certain level of comfort and benefits of this other job, but I don't like the management or I don't like the people, like it's that kind of stuff. But it's like I have this team over here that is like super encouraging and people and leaders that I'm willing to get behind because I'm like they're encouraging me and leading me in a direction I love to go. So even though like it may not be, you know, the scales may not equal out as far as like what's what, like I definitely am willing to take a risk here because I'm like I feel safe knowing that like I could potentially have a future there. And then like lo and behold, here we are almost 2 years later, and it's like, man, this is a great decision.
I was going to say that a lot of times that leads into the place that you work at for years. You know what I mean?
Right.
It ends up being like the main thing, right? And to me, that's what you want to create. You want to create a place where people are they're fully invested.
Right.
They're in it because they're in it. You know, they're passionate about what they're doing. They're making, you know, they're changing things with what they're doing. They're being innovative. They're pushing themselves. They're learning. All of those things. That's the kind of place I like to work in. Seriously.
Well, you know, how did we meet? You know, my part-time job, I work for X-Man in a way. And, you know, they hired a monster basically.
Dude, you scared the hell out of me. I'll just be honest. You scared the hell out of me. I was like, you're exactly who I want because I was like.
But you also, I hope, listen to my leadership.
Of course.
I had no authority over you, but I was given authority inside the company.
Absolutely.
And you said, this is the direction we need to go.
Yep.
And you let me do what I need to do.
Yes.
Now, I haven't gotten everything I want due to some financial constraints, but we are working on that.
I was going to say, COVID, we're going to snap out of COVID, and hopefully that'll shake loose.
Maybe if the home team can start winning some football games.
Yeah.
Right.
Please.
Maybe,
Please.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
But
Isn't it sad when the football dictates?
But you had a choice.
Yeah.
And you chose a route. Talk about that. What did you see? What did you feel? You talk about meeting people, and all of a sudden, what did you say in your soul? What did your gut tell you?
So here's the thing: when I think about you in relationship to myself, I'm thinking completely against type here. We're in the opposite spectrums of kind of persona, right?
Okay.
Of people, of who we actually are. And you represent something that I'm so not. That I immediately thought that's who I want on my team, because that person brings something to the table that I can barely even relate to, and barely even understand, but is so necessary, and so I'm vulnerable, right? And the company's vulnerable because of that. And so I'm the type of leader where I just kind of go into situations assuming I don't know anything. I don't know jack squat. I know that I'm not the most talented person at the table. I know that there are gifted people around me that know what they're doing 1,000% better than I ever will or want to. And so, I know that I come to the table with some skills that I've honed in my own life and with an experience through my life. And having been poured into by good leaders. And so I feel like, that's kind of my gift, is kind of go, hey, here's one way that we can work together. But, I don't look for people who are just like me. I look for people who are absolutely not like me, and who understand things that I never could. Because every time I've done that, I have learned so much, and so it's not that I've learned how to do what you do, but I've learned about what you do, and I've learned about who
we resolved the specific situation, and we've continued on with the process.
Yep.
Well, why?
You know why? Is because not only were you effective, but you created a real understanding of the value that you bring. And so it made me kind of think, this is exactly what part of our team makeup needs to have. It's a really important component. And I like to talk, when I talk about people in a collaborative team together, I like to talk about people who are principled. You have a core group, and I have people who are at various part-time, various things, but you want that nucleus of your organization to be principals. You want them to be people who are fully vested, fully in, and they're at full capacity. So when you're talking about things like that, you have to kind of be long. I take a very long vision of that. What is this growing into? And I was sharing with Ian, in fact, this past week, for a long time, I've had a goal for you to be part of the organization that we are in together full time.
Right.
And so we're about to get to realize some of that, because, over the past 2 years that's developed into a thing, and it's come in a way that's not been expected for either one of us. But because
I certainly wasn't expecting.
Exactly. Well, and that's the other thing, is that, the value that you bring, you'll bring value to the organization for years and years. And it doesn't mean that's because things are going to be done the same for years and years. But I feel like you're the kind of person that's going to dig in, and you're going to understand things have progressed. You're going to go and seek the knowledge of how things have progressed. You'll seek the new things that are coming in that are being innovative right now, and you'll implement those things. And that's the other thing. I look for people who can implement not just.
Okay, because what you're doing is you're falling right into where I wanted you to
Okay,
go.
good.
So how about this?
You
I'm gonna say a
sprung his
statement,
trap.
and
He's like,
that's-
Yeah, right.
so does a true leader create followers, or does a true leader create other leaders?
Oh, definitely. Other leaders.
Yeah.
I mean, it may be a little bit of both. There are some times where, well, I don't know. No, really other
See, we
leaders.
use the word leaders,
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
authority.
Right.
Yeah.
See, I was very specific in that.
I don't want to harp on this for too long because, again, I always talk about it. Anyone at home take a shot. Whenever I was at,
Is this a Canada story?
yes, it is.
Oh my
Whenever
God,
Here we go. At least it's not Star Wars.
I
Is
was
it
in
Star
the,
Wars.
You're right. No,
We need
But-
like one of those beer slinging songs
Yeah.
every time.
Yeah,
he, oh,
yeah.
Canada.
Right. But
We
like
need
at
a
the-
soundbite board here. is what
Right,
we need.
right. Every time that I trained somebody at the store that I was at, it was the same sort of coffee shop I worked at up there. Again, I have talked about before. Again, like I really grew as a person while I was there because again, it was me getting out. It was me getting out. It was me kind of running away from my problems to a certain degree, but also like trying to discover myself. And in doing that, I had got promoted to a trainer of some kind, and then I had trained like 4 or 5 people, like 3 of which had became like my peers, like as far as like authority, and so like by the time I had left, I had already had like 3 to 4 people that were like really good, solid employees. They were just great people to have on a team, and they were also like technically my peers and no longer my just like coworkers. And so that was a point for me where I felt proud as a leader because I was like, man, I'm leaving knowing that this place is going to be set up for success.
Well, how many times in that show, Undercover Boss,
Right,
did
right.
the CEO or owner of the company come down and find these amazing leaders?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That were
Yes.
low, not even management level.
Right,
But they were leaders.
Yeah.
And they
Yeah.
did this. And you just saw how passionate these people
Yeah.
were
Right.
and wanted to do good for somebody,
Yep.
wanted
Yeah.
to find somebody they could work for
Yeah.
and be amazing.
Yeah.
One thing that I always, think about too in leadership is I look for opportunities to replace myself every time I can. Because I really feel like that's how you grow and that's how you keep from being stale, especially if the organization's objective and goal is growth. Now, not every organization necessarily wants that or that's the place that they're in, but for the ones that are, which is mostly the ones that I've worked for,
Right.
if you're going to do that, you really need to always be looking at ways that you can replace yourself so that you can move on to the next level of things as things develop and as things begin to work and so forth. And so I try to kind of look at things and kind of go, let's repeat the things that are working, right? For as long as they work. But let's not have sacred cows, and let's be able to innovate and use innovation. So be at your top of your game on that end. But really, hey, if the more people I can teach to do, my proudest leader moment was when I worked to bring an organization completely out of the ground.
Oh yeah.
And so in the 8th year, it's kind of sad because this is a little bit of a sad story because I didn't end up getting to go and move into the promised land, the thing that we all dreamed of, because I got called on to something else to do right before that happened. But right there when that happened, when I left, they did not have to hire my position because there were 20 volunteers that could do my job.
Wow.
And so they waited for 8 months to replace me.
Wow.
And I thought that was so cool. I thought,
that's
awesome.
awesome.
That's neat, because those people, and they all ended up being super active in the next thing. But every time I drive by that place now, I'm like,
Yeah.
there it is.
So a good or true leader
Nice.
is not threatened by success.
No.
They actually delight in the success of the people around them. I was talking to a friend of mine today, and I've actually reached out a little bit over the last 2 weeks. This finite life that I have with a stroke, I thought actually I was invincible until 2 weeks ago. I have come to find out that I'm not. Right. And I was talking to one of my best friends of just over 30 years. And we are probably two of the biggest alpha males on the planet. Right. Big D, my buddy Big D. And I was like, why don't we argue? Why don't we piss on each other?
Right.
You know, why you don't find, you're not threatened by those people that are successful, and you delighted in the fact that they didn't have to hire anybody for 8 months.
Right.
You know, why is that something that a true leader is? Somebody that's not threatened by other people's success.
I think so. I mean, to me, there are so many options in the world. There are so many things that you can do as a human and as a worker.
And then to kind of what you're talking about before is like having people around you that can do a thing or do whatever they're doing so well. It's like surrounding yourself with people that are so good at what they do, even though they may be better at it than you, in the long run will make them look good, but also make you look good as well if they're part of your team in some capacity. I think of like,
I think one of the downfalls of a company is that a lot of people point fingers and they try to make other people look bad. And so when the promotion comes up, we make it hard on the leadership or the authority figures to pull the best of the worst out. Yeah. What if we all built each other up and worked so hard to make each other look good, and then make it even harder for the leadership or the formal authority to pick the best of the best?
See, and that's what I want, because I want people to come to work.
Right. Yeah.
I want people to show up, and I want people to be excited to be there. Let me tell you what, if you're going to get on our team with what we're doing now, you're going to bring it, and you're going to do good, or you're not going to last on our team. I can tell you right now. And it's not because that I say so. It's because my team would be like, you know, and that's because everyone is fully vested, and they will protect that because it matters to them.
Even on this podcast, I had a stroke, and I had to show up because Ian's ready to
the
week before. So I was prepared, you know, he was going to kick my ass to the curb. Stroke or not, I was coming in a wheelchair. I told Hottie Doctor, I said, if you have to wheel my fat ass in there in the hospital bed, I am not missing the podcast.
I'm like, he's got Y-Man waiting in the wings over here. And
jeez, I can't catch a break.
He must have learned that shit in Canada.
Must have.
Anyways,
you guys want to touch socialistic?
Do you guys want to touch on anything else before we?
There he goes again. See, what if we want this to be an hour and a half podcast?
Do you want to? Go ahead.
Are you done? Apparently, you're done talking.
What's the next chapter? Let's go ahead. Come on.
He is a little bit of the producer.
He is.
I thought that was a genuine conversation. I thought it was really great, and I think
I will tell you, you know, I really enjoy speaking to you both about this, and I want you to know truly, and I mean this with all my heart. I'm not just trying to like blow your heads out of the up and out of the room, but you guys are great leaders, and I have learned something from both of you, and valuable things, not just one, but
hopefully humility.
Many things. For in definitely humility, and so, but I just want to say, like, I really am awed by who you are as people, and that's the kind of people I want in my life, you know, because that's how you build a life that you love and build a support and love around yourself too, of people that you can really, that you want to be around, you know. And there's never a day when I pull up and go, oh God, you know, Stoney's there, or oh God, Ian's there, you know. I never feel that way. I'm always like very excited to see you all, and when we come together here, that's what makes this so fun, is because I'm always excited and energized by what we're going to do together. And so I just want to say hats off to you. You're both awesome,
and I can say
I really mean that.
I can say the same thing for you. It's like I said just earlier in this episode, I've never worked with somebody who has been able to just like pitch an idea and then get me so on board with it to where like I'm halfway through it going, how did I get here? And then but I'm also like, this is awesome though, like, you know. And so I think that's a great quality, because it gets me so encouraged and so like invigorated to like really move on to the next thing. So
well, thank you for that trust.
Absolutely. And you know, like I said in the last week's episode, you know, how I feel about our conversations and our life, our journey together. Because for me, everything is about a journey. Especially now.
Right.
You know, because I thought it was an infinite journey.
Right.
And technically, because of my spirituality, it is an infinite journey.
Sure.
But, more here on this planet, it might be a tad bit more finite than I thought it was.
Right.
And so these conversations and the friends that you keep and the people that you keep around you are so important. And one of the things you say, X-Man, is, the people, the leadership that I allow in my life. You've allowed my leadership in your life.
Yes.
Yeah, I work for you in one sense, but that's a very small part of our life.
Right.
I adore your kids. I adore.
I was going to say the
fact
least important.
You've allowed my leadership in their life, and trust to be around them and protect them and look after them, and know that I'm going to nurture them spiritually. And if somebody were to mess with them, we know what would happen there.
Yeah,
so,
I wouldn't want to see the other guy. Let me tell you that.
So and that's, to me, that's what it's all about now. The last couple of weeks have been a very eye-opening experience.
I didn't want to say
that was a terrible.
I'm just glad you said it, so I didn't have to.
But I will say this also, and I have found in the last couple of weeks, we talk about spirituality a little bit. Power of prayer is real.
Yeah.
One of my coworkers from work came and told me that they had a big prayer circle.
Yeah.
And for me. And I said it was on this day, and it was about this time. And he looked at me and says, "How did you know?" I said, "I felt it.
Oh, yeah.
I could feel it."
Yep.
And so he was happy to go back and tell everybody at work that I knew it. I could feel it. It's that important.
Yep. And I know we have listeners all over the world too who've been in your corner too.
Oh,
man.
absolutely.
I know that, and I thank all of you out there who have said a
for
prayer
real.
for Stoney, because he needed a lot of positive thoughts and good vibes sent his way. And I know that you did feel it. I believe. I believe everything you're saying.
And as of today, the evidence, my eye is returning.
Yeah.
So I'm either repairing what was wrong or building new pathways for it to work. And, I get to go into the meeting with the neurologist Monday and have some good news.
Yeah.
And that's just amazing, not to have a million questions, but to have some good news and a million questions.
Yeah. Yes.
There is progress. And
so I guess technically, if you're listening to this, whenever it drops, and you're probably going to be at the neurologist.
I'll be at the neurologist.
There you go.
Everybody say a prayer.
Yeah, send some good vibes his way.
Send some good vibes, because I will feel it.
Man, that's awesome. Well, anyways, I hope that we at least offended one person at this episode.
I hope not.
If we didn't, screw you.
I was encouraged this whole time. But anyways, if you're looking for us, you can just type in Retrospect Pod on all the different social media platforms. We also have a link tree /Retrospect Pod. You can find all of our links there. Or you can just type in Retrospect on any pod.
And we try to throw it up on Facebook too. Look at us on Facebook. It's a great way to engage us. Say something.
Same thing.
Say hello.
Retrospect Pod.
Tell us you hate us.
Right,
something. Tell us how we offended you.
Right.
And if you have an interesting topic, throw it at us.
Tell Stoney you hate him. I like to be loved on.
Right. I was gonna say, how about you send us some encouragement, huh?
Yeah, right.
Right. Some aggressive encouragement. I just love you guys.
Yes. I love you with my teeth gritted.
Yes. Anyways, until next week, thank you so much for listening. Bye-bye.
See ya.
Peace.